Alright, so this is my Yamaha DX7. As you can see, it is in absolutely excellent condition. The keys are pure white, by the way, although I have kind of a yellow colored light bulbs. But yeah, they are pure white. In fact, this thing is in mint condition. And it was fully functional when I bought it. I spent a little extra on it because it was in mint condition. I also have the case, the cartridges, and even some original mint condition paperwork. And it was working great until it didn't. And this is kind of a lesson, and I kind of knew this going in, but there's a few things I want to say about the synthesizer. One is it is far more capable than people realize. I see a ton of videos on this, but it doesn't seem like anyone really knows just how capable this is. Frequency modulated synthesis is a very good form of synthesis, and some new synthesizers today have it. But most people, including most big artists from the 80s, were just too lazy to learn the synth, so they just stuck with the presets, which aren't anywhere near as, that doesn't really show off the true capabilities of the synthesizer. It can make some very modern and very complex synth sounds. So that's the first thing I want to say right off the bat. And everyone seems so obsessed about the presets. I like making my own sounds on this. I mean, not like I'm against the presets, but I find making my own sounds on the synthesizer to be way more rewarding. And I was going to make a video on that, but the big thing I want to talk about in this video is for people that obsess over the old sounds and obsess over, they're like so obsessed with getting an old synthesizer. Something you should know is at the end of the day, even though this was in today's money 6,800 whatever dollars, is a very expensive synthesizer and it's very well built. Although the buttons are not, I mean, they're okay, but I'm glad Yamaha ditched that button design. But the point is, you're still buying a 40-year-old synthesizer, and because the thing is roughly 40 years old, it might have some issues. The current issue I have right now is every time I turn this off for an extended period of time, then turn it back on again, like if I come back, say, the next day to play it some more, it suffers from memory loss, which I know a lot of you are going to be screaming, well, it's the internal battery, just replace it. And I understand it's the internal battery, but since I didn't replace that battery yet, I need to go deep into these menus here and use this thing here and just change it back because I find that this keyboard, everything will be like super duper low pitch to the point where you can like barely hear anything. And in some cases you can't hear anything. So I need to do the transpose thing, and then I need to fix a few other things. This always seems to default to the steps, and I don't want it with steps. I want it with no steps. Numerous other issues. So it takes several minutes of my frickin' time just to reset everything, which isn't a problem with the synth. It's just the battery died, and I haven't replaced it yet. But there's another issue, and unfortunately, there is no fix for this one. I don't know if it's going to hear this, but okay, sounds fine, except that note that I'm playing should really be down here, not up here. Okay, well, here's the other issue. I doubt the camera's going to hear this, but every single thing that I'm playing is the exact same note. I'm not using MIDI. I did use MIDI to put the SysX data back in, which I've done numerous times before. I know how to do that. That's not what screwed this up. But the last two times I've turned on this synthesizer, it's the same note. And last time I got lucky, and eventually, after several minutes, it kind of fixed itself. Well, unfortunately, it hasn't done that this time around. And I've fiddled with everything in here, and I'm quite familiar with this synthesizer. I've spent a lot of time learning it and playing with it. And yeah, there's no way to fix that. Sure, you can play with the master tune adjustment here, and that allows you to pitch it up and down, but that doesn't tell the keyboard, the synthesizer, I should say, that this key is different from this key, and this key is different from that key, and whatever. So now I have a synthesizer that works great. Got my different sounds. Ooh, I really like that one. There's a few other nice ones. Just randomly. That one I need to do the transposing on. I guess I didn't get that far into fixing that part yet. But it doesn't matter because even when I fix that part so I can actually hear it, it's all the same frickin' note. I mean, if I play some notes here, it's all the same frickin'. It's the same note. There's no. I mean, they're all playing the exact same thing. Doesn't matter where I hit. So that's the thing. Is this a great synthesizer? Yes. If you find it for a good price, is it still worth considering? Yes. Frequency modulated synthesis is fantastic, and by playing with these little settings here, you can really change the sound in ways I don't even think most people would realize. The problem is if you buy this synthesizer, you're buying a very old synthesizer. I don't care if it's factory sealed. There's a lot of capacitors. They will eventually go out. You can get this thing recapped at a good electronic repair shop, but that's going to cost you a bit of money, especially since this is so old. There's a lot more components, whereas today we can do it with one or two chips. I mean, you get the idea. It's not exact, but you get the idea. It's a good analogy. I mean, I looked at one of my vintage drum machines in here, and over the years, they made two different versions. They both look and sound identical. They're both just as reliable, but the slightly newer, but still very old version is a lot simpler on the inside because they instead of having a million gigantic chips, now they could just have two big chips and a few other little things here and there, and it does the same thing. Technology does advance over time to the point where now to get this synthesizer, we don't need 45 plus pounds of circuitry to do it. So when this thing does go bad, there's a lot of things to replace, and it probably will go bad at some point. You're not going to have it for 20 years with no issues. I can practically guarantee it because it's already, I mean, this thing was from 1983. So, it's a great synth, but you need to understand the risk that you're getting yourself into here. I don't have a cartridge in at the moment because I wanted to reset all this first and not even have the slightest chance of erasing it. But there it is. Hopefully I could fix it this time. This is the second time it's happened. Like I said, first time I got lucky, but it looks like this time I might be out of luck. And it happens every time I turn this on. I mean, let me mute this. If I turn it off, what the heck am I thinking? It's over here. If I kill the power, I wait for a little bit. My lights are really acting funky, aren't they? And after a little while, I turn it back on. You're not supposed to just turn it off and immediately turn it back on. Some electronics don't care, and then some, other electronics you can really goof up by doing that. But, it's still there. It memorized everything. No surprise there. But if I turn it off, I come back the next day or 2 days later and turn it back on, it forgets everything. I need to tell it where the different notes are, and I need to adjust a billion freaking settings, and I need to once again fix the pitch bend, etc., etc. And then it works. And again, if I would have replaced the battery already, I wouldn't have that issue. But this issue is not fixable. You kind of cross your fingers and hope that the 40-year-old hardware can fix itself. And generally it can't. They're all the same note. So I can play things, but it's the same note. I mean, I could put all 3, 4, whatever keys down. It's the same note. Now, some people might go, oh, it's the mono and polyphonic thing. Yeah, I already fixed that, and usually that does the trick, but whenever this issue happens where they're all the same note, it doesn't matter, because guess what? I can do a chord, and it is a chord, but it's a chord of the exact same note, so I got 3 of the same notes going, which normally wouldn't be possible. But there's no point in 3 of the same notes. You want 3 different notes. So there it is. There's a DX7. I love it. It's a great synth, but like all good things, at some point, it will have issues. The nice thing is with it being a piece of professional grade equipment, usually it doesn't have any issues, but here we are 40 years later. Now that it is designed to be user serviceable, and that's great. But my point is, you're going to have to go through some kind of trouble to get it fixed. So it's great that it's not designed to become obsolete, but keep in mind when you drop hundreds of dollars on one of these, it is old. It's very old. And on top of that, you don't know how it was treated. But even this one being in mint condition, well, the capacitors are still original. I mean, this thing's ancient. So we'll see if I can fix it again. But I just wanted to make a little announcement here for anyone that's so obsessed with getting old hardware. Sometimes it works great, and other times it doesn't. And sometimes it works great when you get it, and then maybe a couple weeks later you start having issues. But that's all for this one, and I'll see you next time.